Hi there, everyone. Meteorologist Robert Spetta here with you during the early morning hours of the 19th of October 2013. And well, if you look at the satellite imagery across the western Pacific, if you put your thumb over top of the screen and blot out the image of this typhoon, everything looks fairly quiet out here. But if you release your thumb off the screen, yes, we still have this typhoon out here just towards the west of Guam, and a very violent one at that, and definitely a top story today out here. Winds currently in the center of circulation, according to the U.S. military out here, at 125 knots. That is a Category 4 intensity. The official agency, JMA, has the intensity a little bit lower at 100, gusting up to 140 knots, but remember, they put their winds on a 10-minute wind scale, vice the 1 minute from JTWC, so there's our 10 to be a little bit lower than what the U.S. military says, but for JMA to have a 100 knot type of system is definitely very strong. They actually expect it to continue to intensify with gusts up to 150 knots, becoming a violent typhoon according to their intensity on Francisco. So definitely expecting the storm system to peak and max out as a very violent storm system. Now the good news is that if we go back to the satellite imagery out here, well over open ocean, and you can see it moving away from the Mariana Islands, which is over here towards the east. Actually, Guam did report some tropical storm strength gusts during the morning hours here on Friday, but conditions gradually improving as this storm system moves off towards the west, but it is intensifying while doing so. Very well defined eye, that eye wall completely setting up. This is the infrared imagery during the overnight hours. If you can just see the visible imagery starting to give way because we went into the night hours. But let's take a look at the microwave imagery, which allows us to peer through a lot of these higher cloud tops, and what we can see here is that very well defined eye wall set up right in that center of circulation. These areas in the darker reds, that's where you're seeing those winds gusting up and over 250 kilometers per hour. Those are very strong typhoon strength winds, and that's right there. But we still have these stronger outer bands setting up. It's getting that buzzsaw type of shape coming out of this, very classic for an intense storm system. Something this storm has also done today, if we take a look back at that infrared image, is that we're seeing what we call these trochoidal wobbles, which means it's wobbling back and forth as it moves off there towards the northwest. That is a classic indication of a very rapidly developing storm system, a very strong and strengthening system out here, and definitely it's going to be peaking at a very violent intensity. The good news is that we go through the forecast, and it's expected to peak at this violent intensity, but then drop off quite significantly as it starts to move farther towards the northwest. Main reason, increase in vertical wind shear. We're going to be seeing some lower sea surface temperature. And if we do take a look at the track from the U.S. military over the next 5 days, JMA just goes out 72 hours, so we'll show you their track. It peaks up at 135, gusting to 165 knots. That's the equivalent of a Category 5 hurricane if this was in the Atlantic. But the good news is it peaks out here towards the west of Iwotone, towards the southeast of Daitojima, so no land areas really being impacted. This couldn't be any farther out into the open ocean. And then it really significantly decreases intensity according to their forecast up here until the 23rd. So this is going into Tuesday of next week, just towards the east of the Amami Islands. Just holding on to the typhoon strength. Main reason is you have that vertical wind shear coming through due to the upper level jet there over portions of Japan at that time, plus, like I said, the cooler sea surface temperatures, but that's not so much the factor. It is that vertical wind shear. Now, where is this going? Well, it is going to continue to track along the western periphery of the Westpac High, farther off here towards the east, moving there towards the northwest. You also have a high pressure area over southeastern China. That's going to continue to dominate, and tracking in between these two, likely heading off there towards the Amami Islands or towards western portions of Japan. I know a few of the models actually take a little farther there towards the south. It expects this high pressure to weaken and this build in from the west. And that is actually what the GFS and both the NavGem are indicating at this time. This just showing the GFS model on Wednesday into Thursday next week, and it really just lingers here, and they have it lingering there, not really getting picked up by that trough off there towards the north and kind of getting buffeted farther down there towards the south. Now, this is the winds, and there's a pretty significant wind field on it, but if we pull up the MSL, one thing you're going to see here is that the bulk of the precipitation is going to remain on the northern periphery. Main reason for that is that shear and that troughing over Japan coming in and kind of tearing that off there towards the north. And this is by Wednesday. We're going to scroll ahead back into Thursday here, and you'll notice that a lot of the southern periphery of this starts to go away, and the bulk of the precipitation moves off there towards the north. That is via this model, and actually, well, Not just the nav gem as well, shown here, shows a very similar outcome, moving over Okinawa and the Amami Islands before pushing off there towards western Japan. But also the JMA, a high resolution model, shows the storm tracking in from the southeast and basically right over Okinawa here and also the Amami Islands. This is by Wednesday. Let's scroll a little bit farther ahead into, well, going into Thursday and then off towards Friday, shoots off towards the northeast, eventually impacting western Japan and even moving over towards Tokyo. So it's something to watch out for. But that's JMA, NAV, GEM, GFS all pick up on this. ECMWF kind of swings it a little bit farther towards the north in more of a recurvature scenario, lingering just towards the east of Okinawa before shooting off towards the northeast. So model consensus at this time does pinpoint towards the southern Japanese island. And to be honest, even if this does move a little bit farther there towards the north, we're still going to have a pretty tight gradient coming in behind it. So tropical storm strength winds at the very least are going to be expected there across the western portions of Okinawa. Very much like what we saw WIPA when that came through. I know that we had some pretty gusty winds off here towards the east. This is a GFS model, though. It does expect us to move towards the northeast, eventually impacting the Izu Islands, which definitely will not be welcome. And I think that Tokyo and the Izu Islands are going to see some form of rain showers out of this in possibly some pretty gusty winds, which could trigger more landslides as the soil already there. Pretty saturated. So my thoughts at this time, well, with the southern periphery of where we are seeing the models and where that nowcast for the streamline analysis is, I do think it's going to come off here towards the west or turn towards the north. That's my thing. Resaving. All right, turn towards the north and move across Honshu out here, really getting disrupted by the hills. Now on the far eastern side of where these tracks very well could go, and if that west pack high weakens a little bit and the troughing's a little bit stronger, you would see it turn towards the north, kind of follow what the ECMWF is saying. And I think the ECMWF is a very far eastern periphery of where this could possibly go and just remain off the coast of Tokyo, following in basically the exact same track as what we saw with WIPA. I don't think this is going to move farther there towards the west, so China and Taiwan, I would probably discount that at this time, but basically somewhere in between these two red lines is where this is likely going to go, as a much weaker system by the time it gets there than what we're expecting max intensity to be, and it's starting to go extra tropical, so you're going to see a lot of these rain showers on the northern periphery, so a very big rainmaker out here across Japan. Going into Wednesday and Thursday of next week, I can't stress that enough because these are my thoughts at this time, but that is nearly a week away from where I'm making this. With that said, the forecast can very well significantly change. So that is all for right now, everybody. I know a lot of people are asking about another tropical depression just towards the east of Francisco here. That very well could become our next storm system, and if you were paying attention on a lot of the models, I was kind of ignoring it. A lot of them were picking up on NavGem, the most aggressive, picking up on a storm system, following right behind this one as a very fairly significant typhoon. So for now, we're concentrating on Francisco, but if Francisco wasn't here, this definitely would be our top story. So please stay safe out there, everybody, and continue to watch here at westernpacificweather.com. Also, check the website if you're watching this on YouTube. Plenty of full updates and in-depth analysis on these storms out here in the Western Pacific. Stay safe out there, everybody.